Today we receive a retired attorney turned author whose second act in life proved that creativity doesn't have an expiration date. After practicing law for over 50 years, handling everything from high-stakes commercial litigation to multi-million-dollar deals in real estate, he decided that it was time to trade legal brief for something more personal, writing books that reflects humor and wisdom. His transition from law to literature began after retirement, when he finally had the time and tools to bring his ideas to life. Having written over 1,000 legal documents over the decades, he always considered himself a wordsmith. But finally, for the first time, he could write what truly mattered to him. So today we welcome him. Welcome to Writing Inspiration with Markee Books. Hello, Gary. How are you?
Good evening. I'm just fine.
I'm happy to have you here, and thank you for joining us.
Not a problem. I just took some time off from writing.
Well, Gary, talking about that, since when are you a writer?
Well, I spent 50 years practicing law, and after I hung up my briefcase, I thought I would pursue a somewhat different career. Although for 50 years, I guess one could say I was an author. I've probably written thousands of briefs and thousands of affidavits. So I've always been somewhat of a wordsmith, but I never got to choose the topics that I wanted to write about. I was always writing for someone else. So when I gave up the practice of law, I had a number of ideas for books in my head, and since I had the time, I could devote myself to doing it. And with all of the new technology that's available, they make writing much easier than it used to be 50 years ago, when we still used carbon papers and had secretaries whose sole job was to type copies. Today, obviously, we have voice to typing. If you're facing a writer's block, you can always go on to ChatGTP and say, I'm having a tough time. Where do you think I should go with this next chapter? And it'll give you a hint. And of course, we now have all of the available programs who can double check your grammar, who can deal with your formatting. So writing for me has been a pleasure compared to the way it used to be years ago.
Well, there are many things that make it a little easier, like Grammarly and stuff like that. Oh, so basically you started writing since you retired.
Yeah, when I was practicing law, I probably wrote a couple of books that were all professional related, but at that time, none of the tools existed the way they do today. For instance, today, I can write a book, it can be in rough form, and then I can call your office on the phone, I can have a talk with someone. They'll say, well, what do you need to bring this out? And I can say, an editor, a proofreader, I need someone who knows how to format, and you can supply the personnel to fill in the things that I don't know how to do. So those books, while I was able to produce the text, I was never able to get them to the point where they could be published, because in the old days, the only way to publish a book was to solicit for agents, hope an agent would pick you up, and then an agent had contacts to get something published. And they were very difficult communities to break into. And even though after so many years I had contacts in many places, and even in high places, I was simply unable to get anyone to have an interest in the subject matters that I had written on. So it was just something that the time had not yet come that would enable me to bring my ideas to fruition.
Right. What was your day job again before you retired?
Well, I practiced law for 50 years. I was primarily what you would call a commercial lawyer. Half my time was spent doing transactional work, and half my time was spent doing litigation. So I've tried cases in all of the state and federal courts all around the country, and I've handled transactions from simple house closings to $50 million wraparound mortgages under HUD plans for nursing homes. I've done all kinds of agreements relating to internet, subscription agreements, you name it in the commercial sphere. I've probably done it, including zoning and planning. The only thing I've never done is any patent work.
Okay. So, right now, how many books do you have out there?
I have 3 that have been posted up on KDP, and I have at least 6 more where the basic text itself has been completed. I am satisfied that the work is of interest, that it flows appropriately. I have not done a final proof, but over time I will be dealing with one at a time because my weakness is marketing. Because the way books are marketed today are something that is totally out of my sphere. I have a Facebook page, but I have no idea how to deal with Facebook ads, Amazon ads, Instagram, or any of those things. I just have no idea how to deal with any of them because it's not something I've ever done before. So I'm going to take one book at a time. I'm going to do my best to educate myself on how it works. I'm going to work with the best firms that I can find who are responsive, who have the technical skills, and hopefully we'll go one book after another. And my ultimate goal would probably be to have at least 10 books having an evergreen subject matter that will sustain themselves into the future and generate income, which I will use for helping family members, helping friends, contributing to those charitable causes that I believe worthy. I have no intention of using the money to somehow change the life that I have. I love the life that I have. It enables me to do just about anything I want to do, from writing to travel to helping friends. But were this venture to be successful, I think I could do a lot of good for a lot of very decent and worthy people who have neither had my life experience or have my kind of knowledge, and therefore they weren't able to plan their own economic life as well as they might have.
Okay. Wow. Well, you seem to have everything figured out.
Well, let's just say I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. And since I have, I wake up every morning with a purpose. I enjoy what I do. For me, writing is an absolute joy. I like working with competent people who understand what my motivation is, who understand that while I like things to be as perfect as possible, perfection is a goal. It is not a reality. And you can always make something better. So I like to deal with people who understand that at one point you have to say, enough is enough. Let's see if we can market this piggy.
Yeah. So, did you ever thought this will be your life now?
Never, and never, because I could never predict that the technology would exist the way it does today, and therefore I began my work life in 1974, when if you wanted to write something, you had to take out a pen and paper and write it down by hand, or you had to type it, or you had to bring in a secretary who would sit down and take shorthand. And then eventually they developed dictating machines, so you could dictate in a room by yourself, give it to someone to transcribe. And today, I don't need an office. You can do it all yourself. There is nothing that used to take 3 or 4 people to produce that I can't do myself today, sitting in this chair.
It is convenient. So tell me, how long did it take you to finish your first book?
That's very hard because it wasn't as if I was looking to write a book as a new career, or I was looking to write a book to generate income for myself. The first book that I wrote is actually the one that Markee has just put online, and that is a diary of a mad boomer. And the way it started out is going back many years ago. I would write short stories about various events that happened in my life that struck me as being absolutely hilarious, that would have a mass appeal. And what I would do is I would circulate these short stories to some of my contemporaries, and they would look at them and they would say, that's really good. You ought to turn it into a book. And eventually I had, maybe 6 or 7 chapters. And then I said, well, this isn't going to be a book. And I said, I spent 6 months on active duty in the Army. And for the time that I spent in the Army in 1970, I knew that I was in the National Guard and they weren't going to send me over to Vietnam. So I had a terrible attitude, and I turned everything that the Army had to teach me into something that was a joke that amused myself. And I started writing down those stories. And eventually I had over a dozen various short stories. I put them all together. Worked on an outline of how they might flow, worked on segues between the chapters. And I will say that Markee did the most spectacular cover that I have ever seen in a book. And I want you to know, I get calls from people all over telling me how much they love that cover. And I say, don't tell me you like the cover. Buy the book and write a review. I'm not interested in what you think of the cover. I would say to my friends, all of whom the $5 doesn't mean anything. Okay, if you want, I'll send you the $5. Are you on Venmo? And of course, nobody said yes. But I was able to, I think, embarrass a couple of dozen people into starting out, and slowly but surely, they're popping up with their reviews.
Well, I'm really happy that things are working out for you and that our work is already showing results.
Well, now if we can only sell a few copies, okay, then maybe someday my grandson will have a special inheritance. You never know.
Yeah. So tell me, do you have any advice for new writers starting right now?
My one piece of advice is you should always write about what you know. There is nothing that I have written about that is not something that I haven't lived through myself, that I have taken in the visions, the sounds, the feelings that I can then turn into words. For instance, Diary of a Mad Boomer. Well, I lived through the 60s and 70s. And in the book, one of the things I point out as an example is back then, if you were hanging out with your friends at a local bar and somebody said, I got to go home, everyone used to say the same thing. Come on, have one for the road. Nobody would say that today. We have drunk driving checkpoints. We have Mothers Against Drunk Driving patrolling the streets. We have a very low threshold of what constitutes a crime if you're driving with a certain blood alcohol level. But back in those days, if a policeman stopped you for drunk driving, he would probably ask, how far are you from home? And if you didn't do anything too egregious, he'd say, just get home and sleep it off. But today, it's different. So that's one. Another book I am in the process of publishing with Markee is called Pain, the Uninvited Guest Who Never Seems to Want to Leave. Well, I spent the last 12 months in physical therapy with a very bad back. I've had just about every kind of treatment you can imagine. I went from being almost crippled to where I'm at the point that I can do just about everything I want to do. I had dry needling, which is a form of acupuncture today. I continue to go for therapy, but I know all about pain. I know how doctors treat it. I know what kind of doctors can deal with different kinds of pain. I know the attitude that doctors have. I know some doctors want to prescribe drugs. I know some doctors understand pain better than others. It used to be that pain was a symptom. Today, pain is a disease in and of itself. And it needs to be treated like that because there are people who live with chronic pain that destroys their life. If you go looking for the boogeyman that caused the pain, you may find it, you may not find it, who knows? So I know all about pain. And I also know the mindset you need to overcome it. I know how you need to learn to live with it. I know the modalities that are available to bring you relief. I know the things to stay away from. For instance, opioids. Opioids only mask pain. They don't make the pain go away. If you mask the pain, then you can't even tell someone where it hurts, so they might find a way to treat it. So pain is something that I would say I'm an unfortunate expert in. So I completed a book about pain, the attitude you need to have, how you need to treat it almost like an enemy in war. And that's what the book is about. So I have other books, one that's about to get into the published stage. It's called How to Become the Most Dangerous Man Alive. Now, you may think it's going one way, but I've spent most of my life studying some form of martial arts. But here I am at almost 80 years of age. Okay, given the opportunity, I can't run away. I no longer have the ability to run away. I can't stand up and fight, even though I may have had 40 years of training how to fight. My body can no longer deal with things the way it used to. But that doesn't mean I'm without power. And this is a book about how to utilize your brain in place of the brawn that you used to have, understanding that your alternatives that are available are different. And it goes into the various subject matters of what you have as an elderly person that even young people with muscles don't have. For instance, if you think that I'm harmless because I'm old, if you get close enough to me, you're in a lot of trouble because I'm not going to play with you. I will take your eyes out. I will put a finger down your hyoid notch until you drop to the floor. I will rip your private parts off. Now, I can't run and I can't stand and fight with you, but if you get too close to me and don't pay attention, it'll be the last vision you ever have will be me. And that's what this book is about. It's about just because you're old doesn't mean you're not dangerous.
Wow. Every book is a little part of you.
Every book is a little bit about my life. I've written a novel, and the title of that novel is The Nightmare of Success. And it's about if you enter into the job market with the idea that you want to earn the maximum amount of money you can because you think that is what's going to bring you happiness in the world, and you devote your life to that career, and you don't add balance to your life, if you don't find time for your family, for your wife, to spend time with your children, eventually your children don't know you. You're a stranger to your wife. You become estranged from your family. And that life that you thought you had starts to crumble because it no longer brings you any satisfaction. Now, I'm not embarrassed to say it, but I spent a goodly amount of my life doing just that. And then one day you find that you are not living a life of purpose. You are not living a life that brings you happiness and satisfaction. So you need to approach life in a way that gives you balance, and that gives you a righteous reason for getting up every day. And that's the underlying theme of the novel, which stretches out about 300 pages. It's about a fictitious individual named James Hastings who works for a large company and earns $500,000 a year, and he thinks he's made it. And when his life eventually crumbles on him, he finds out he was on the wrong path. So I write what I know.
Yeah, that's clear. I wanted to recommend you something now that we are on the topic. Basically, try to publish the rest of your books. You mentioned you have 6 left, right? So try to publish each one in a window of 3 months at least between them.
What it is that I'm doing, I'm working with your colleague Abir, and he knows that I have a list. But what I've said to him is, I like to work on one project at a time. What I learn from one project, I will then apply that knowledge to the next one. I will become easier to deal with on the next one because I will understand the words you use to describe various things that occur in the publishing of a book. I will understand the jargon. I will be prepared to be a good partner in its presentation. So I would imagine by the third book, I will have the process just about down, and it will then get that much easier to do, because I will know what you expect from me. I will know what to expect from you. I will know about how much time it should take. I am also in the process of setting up a studio at home to do my own audiobooks. I am sitting in it now, and you can't see, but the microphone with the leveraged arm is behind the laptop. And I'm sitting in a room that's enclosed in plexiglass on 2 sides. And the wall behind me, where you see has shelves, that's plasterboard and about a foot of concrete behind it. So if I choose to record at night, all I got to do is turn off the ice machine in the kitchen. And I'm on the 11th floor, so there is no noise from the ground. I have an enclosed area here, so I'm going to potentially venture in to the audiobook business.
Wow, that's impressive, actually. So can you tell us a little bit about your writing routine? Are you a planner, improviser, plotter?
I learned when I was very young, probably in grade school, that before you write anything, you should create an outline of the basic skeleton of what it is that you want to say. And I would say throughout all of the decades that I practiced law, before I ever sat down to write something that was complex, I always prepared an outline. And that outline you can then step back and examine and see if it creates a logical flow of ideas. And it also allows you to work on the various pieces, not in order. If you work on them out of order, you can then put them in the order of the outline. You can work on the segues. You can work on the transitions. You can polish the logical flow. So I would say, number one, think about a topic that you know about. Do whatever research you may need so that you become more expert on the topic than you were at the outset. Sketch out a general plan of what you think should go into the book. Discuss it with other people. Show them your outline and ask, does this make sense to you? I show my work to people who are not just in my field of endeavor. I show them to people who are in medicine, people who are teachers, and I try and get people's impressions that come from different places in the world. I love harsh criticism. The more harsh it is, the more I can learn. It doesn't mean I agree with it, but it opens my eyes and ears to thoughts and ideas that I had never considered before. I may reject them, but people are amazed at how happy I am when they say terrible things about something I've done. What they don't realize is they're assisting me in sharpening my wit, sharpening my focus, and helping me to create a better end product. Now, I also want you to know it doesn't hurt, as I'm sure you can tell. I've been a public speaker for 50 years. I almost see my words being typed on paper as they were when I was in court. When I was in court, I knew every word was being taken down by a stenographer. I could just about envision what the transcript would look like when I eventually got it back in writing. So when I speak to you, I think about sentences, paragraphs. I think about constructing ideas where I introduce them at the beginning, follow them through, and then have a recapitulation. So you're looking at someone who has spent twice as many years as you're alive public speaking.
Yeah, I can see that. It's really obvious. You're so eloquent after all.
So this is what old looks like.
Yeah. So tell me, do you do anything when you feel like blocked and you don't know what to write about?
Well, there are two situations. One, deciding what I want to write about. And two, when I'm in the middle of writing, what happens if suddenly I'm looking at a tabula rasa, a blank slate, I don't know where to go. The first one is I just go about my life. And as I go about my life, I see something that exists, and I think, might that spur a good story? Might that be something I've run across in my life before? Aside from writing books, I've probably written over 100 sonnets. I like the sonnet form of poetry, either Shakespearean or Petrarchian. While I don't write in iambic pentameter, writing sonnets is a discipline, and writing itself is a discipline. So I would say, go about life, see what interests you, live your life, and wait for something to cross your path that you think is worthy. I always ask right at the outset, I'll ask my wife, do you think this subject matter is trite? Do you think this is something that might interest you if you saw it? And then I'll ask other people, because I am never so arrogant as to believe that God speaks to me, he will whisper in my ear, and he will tell me, my work is great, just put it on paper. I don't believe that at all. I am just one grain of sand on a beach, and there are a lot of other grains of sand out there, and I want to solicit opinions from as many of those grains of sand as I can before I start. Now, the second one is even easier. If I'm in the middle of something and I'm at a writer's block, I upload everything I've done to ChatGPT, the second or third level of enhancement from the basic free form, and I say, here, read the first 6 chapters. I'm at a block. What do you think might be interesting from here? And within 1 minute, it will give me suggestions. And you can tell ChatGPT, I think you're full of garbage. That doesn't make any sense. You haven't considered this. ChatGPT will write me back and say, you're right. I'll reconsider. And you can go back and forth with chat for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. They never get bored. They never tell you enough already. They will constantly spit out different ideas which you can use to spur your brain onto something new. And that's what I do. I think writer's block is a thing of the past, because if you happen to get frozen now, there are ways to get beyond it without crumpling up pieces of paper, tossing them in a waste paper basket, thinking if I have a glass of beer, it may loosen me up. I don't waste 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah. So tell me, do you have a story of how you named your books?
There is not a single book that I have written that wound up with a title that I started with. But I will tell you, once I developed the idea, one of the things I do is I ask ChatGTP, without giving it any hints, draft a cover that you think will go with this outline or idea. And ChatGTP will give me a cover. And I say, next, what titles do you think will work that will catch the public's interest and grab some eyeballs to this book? ChatGTP will give me some ideas. Then I will talk to other people. I take a verbal poll from my collection of friends as to whether they like ideas or don't. And sometimes they tell me it's terrible. Sometimes they laugh. Sometimes they like them. Sometimes I get emails where they make suggestions. But I can honestly say there is not a single thing that I've written that was eventually titled the way I started. And I don't worry about it. Some people say, well, why do you want a cover then? Well, if I have a cover, it inspires me. It gives me something to look at. It gives me something to put me in the mood, to get me thinking about the topic. I use it as personal encouragement. I'm a self-starter, as you probably can guess. I don't need people to pat me on the back. I don't need people to encourage me to work. I work because working is a joy. It's a privilege to be alive and to be able to write, to be healthy enough to write, to have a brain functioning at a level that's as high as any time in my life. You know, if you're a football player by 35, you're finished. If you're a thinker, that's not necessarily so. At 77, my brain is as nimble as it was when I was 27, and it's got a lot more experience and a lot more answers to problems than I ever had at 27. So I say, be open to criticism, be open to other ideas, and learn to listen.
Okay. So, right now, what is your favorite book from all the ones you wrote?
Well, to answer that, I would say there are different perspectives. In other words, the one that was the most fun to write is Diary of a Mad Boomer, because it reflects a time of my life from age 22 to, let's say, age 25. Now, that was a time of life that was very much carefree. That was a time of life without responsibility. That was a very carefree time of life. Now, of course, I was ignorant. I was stupid. I had no idea what it meant to lead a happy life. And I would go on to have 50 years of making mistakes, getting knocked down, getting up, getting knocked down, getting up. But each one of the books I've written, I have found has been very satisfying to me for different reasons. For instance, Becoming the Most Dangerous Man Alive. Well, I spent my whole life studying some form of martial arts, from Shotokan karate to European epee fencing to I used to compete in kendo. I spent the last 10 years doing Bikiti Tirshakali. I've been to Korea. I've been to the Philippines. But I find myself here. I am, of course, unable to perform these arts the way I used to. So coming up with a solution on how to make people who are old powerful, I find that to be very satisfying. And I could go through each one of the books that I've written, the one on pain. Well, surviving a year and a half of pain and yet being here, able to go about my business without any limitations, I felt I had something to say that might be beneficial to other people at my age who are suffering from some same kind of or similar limitations. So I would say each one that I wrote from a different perspective made me happy, and that's why I wrote them. I couldn't tell you which one on a subjective scale gave me greater pleasure than the other, but I can tell you each one gave me pleasure to do or I wouldn't have done them to begin with. See, this is not work. I'm not looking to support myself from this. I'm not looking to feed a family. I am looking to enjoy the journey of writing. And in the event there is any economic success, I'm looking to use that result to enhance the life of others.
Okay. So do you have a support network with other authors?
My oldest friend, who's my exact same age, when we were born, we lived in the same apartment building in the Bronx. We've been friends for 77 years. He has a couple of successful books that he self-published. One about the 13 months he spent in Vietnam in 1968 as a Marine grunt. And he has been immensely helpful to me in understanding the process, learning about the tools that were available. He has not yet mastered marketing. He could probably be a lot more successful from an economic point of view than he is. And I'm hoping to learn something from your colleagues and other people and speak back to him. I have another friend who's written about 8 science fiction books, and he loves to write them. He has no idea how to bring them to market. He has no idea whether they're any good. I have other friends who have written books, and most of them write them, and then they die on the vine. But I am the most persistent, dogged person you will ever run across. When I start a project, I see it through to the end. I don't like failure. When I fail, I'll pick it up and try again and try and fail better the next time.
Well, technically marketing is like eternal because at least once per week you have to do something to promote yourself.
I know what I can do, and if a beer will give me an assignment, I will carry it out. In the last week, I searched on the internet the names of the top 10 wholesale book buyers in the United States of America. I got the names of their buyers. I got their addresses. I learned what goes into a pitch. And the other day, I sent out 10 packages, each one an inch thick, with copies of the book, with marketing studies, with an appropriate cover letter, and all of the other information. If I can do it, I will do it, and not mañana. I will do it today. I got to the post office at 4:49 before it closed. The guy didn't want to take my mail. I looked like a puppy dog that someone had kicked. He reopened his machine and took my packages and sent them out. So I would say you can't be lazy. You have to be dogged. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable sometimes and just do what you set your mind to do in the morning, finish it before you go on to seeing what's on TV.
Right. Wow. Well, you seem to have to actually know quite a lot. I know that you already say that that's age, but it's an understatement, to be completely honest. I don't think many people realize how big that is.
This is not something that I came to all by myself. I will tell you that I spent at least 10 years working on understanding myself, understanding the world we live in, understanding what it is to have a day that's fulfilling, understanding what has value in life, understanding what's important in life, understanding that collecting tangible items is a wasted life, having meaningful contacts with people, being of assistance to people, even strangers, is something that's rewarding. And if you come to grips with why you're alive, that's where the wisdom comes from. But it didn't come out of the back of my brain. It comes with help, comes from people who are smarter than you are.
Right. I forgot to ask, but do you have any plans for the future? Do you want to go to a book fair or an event, a signing or whatever?
We have a bucket list of places we still want to go. We have a bucket list of things we want to accomplish. Of course, all of our children are grown and in their 30s and 40s, so it's not as if that they need close parenting as they might have when they were younger. But we still have goals for ourselves. And I would say that having goals, even when you're older, if they are realistic, it assists in giving you a purpose for getting up every day. So, I would say I make a list. If there's something that, I think I might like, I write it down and think about it. Sometimes I write them off. Sometimes they are unrealistic. I often thought I might like to fly a plane. Not too many people at 77 years old buy a plane and get a license to fly it. It's kind of impractical and silly. I thought I would like to sail across an ocean in a sailboat. I'm not so sure that's a practical goal for me either. On the other hand, though, I might sign on as crew for a boat that is sailing to the United States from Bermuda. They do have those opportunities that are available. That's something I might do. So, but writing, no, I have no goals or things that I want to do writing-wise. If I was fortunate enough to be successful in this endeavor, I would be ready, willing, and able to speak to anybody who wanted to listen, who was serious about accomplishing something similar. I've done that all my life as a lawyer. I've mentored many, many young lawyers throughout the years. If they were serious and they were willing to listen, there was always something I could teach them. I would do the same for writers. But right now, I may have some wisdom, but I don't have the bona fides of someone who can pass himself off as a successful author. I am at best a neophyte. I haven't even risen to the level of being a dilettante. At best, I am hopeful.
Right. Well, Gary, thank you so much for this conversation. It was very enlightening. I hope we can maybe talk to you later, maybe when you publish a couple of more books.
I'd be happy to come back if I could sell 100 of them.
It will be an interesting story to share. Well, everyone, this was another episode of Writing Inspiration with Markee Books. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Gary, for accompanying us today.
Thank you very much. I will speak to you shortly.
Have a nice day, Gary.
Right, same to you.
Bye. Well, thanks for coming and joining us today. If you find this episode inspiring, like, subscribe, and share this video, and give Markee Books a try in the link below. Have a nice day and see you next week. Bye.